Did you know that there are more possible chess games than there are atoms in the observable universe? And that modern chess computers discovered moves so brilliant that grandmasters spend years trying to understand why they work. 64 squares, 32 pieces, infinite possibilities. Tonight on Midnight Deep Dive, we'll uncover the surprising stories behind this ancient game while you relax and learn. So settle in, we're about to discover why chess has captivated minds for over 1,000 years. In the courts of ancient kings. Close your eyes and let me take you back 1,500 years, to a time when the world was stitched together by trade routes and royal messengers, when knowledge traveled at the speed of caravans and the pace of patient conversation. Picture, if you will, the court of an Indian king in the 6th century, perhaps in the great kingdom of Gupta, where mathematics flourished and scholars gathered under silk pavilions to discuss the mysteries of numbers and strategy. In one corner of this royal court, away from the bustle of diplomatic meetings and ceremonial proceedings, two men sit cross-legged on cushions before a checkered board made of precious wood and ivory. The pieces before them are not the familiar shapes we know today, no elegant knights or towering castles, but rather small carved figures representing the 4 divisions of an ancient Indian army. Elephants with their mighty tusks, horses with flowing manes, chariots with spinning wheels, and foot soldiers standing at attention. The game they're playing has a name that rolls off the tongue like an incantation, Chaturanga. It means 4 divisions, and it represents something revolutionary in human entertainment, a game that mirrors the complexities of warfare and statecraft without requiring a single drop of blood to be shed. Listen carefully, and you might hear the soft click of wooden pieces against the board, the gentle rustle of silk clothing as the players lean forward to consider their moves, the distant sound of temple bells marking the hours as these two minds engage in a battle that could last from sunrise to sunset. One player reaches forward with careful fingers, moves his Raja, the king piece, 1 square to safety, and breathes the words that will echo through centuries. Shah, the king, is in check. But this is only the beginning of our story. What these ancient players could never have imagined is that their simple game of military strategy would travel the world, transforming with each culture it touched, until it became the most studied, most analyzed, most beloved strategy game in human history. The India of the 6th century was a land of incredible intellectual ferment. This was the civilization that gave us the concept of zero, that developed decimal notation, that produced texts on astronomy and mathematics that wouldn't be surpassed for centuries. In this environment of learning and innovation, Chaturanga emerged not as mere entertainment, but as a tool for understanding strategy, probability, and the complex relationships between different types of power. The earliest version of the game was probably played with dice, adding an element of chance that reflected the unpredictability of real warfare. But gradually, as the game evolved, the dice disappeared, replaced by pure strategy and foresight. Players discovered that a game without luck, where every outcome depended entirely on their decisions, offered a different kind of satisfaction. The deep pleasure of knowing that victory or defeat rested entirely in their own hands. The journey along the Silk Road. Now let us follow this remarkable game as it begins its journey across the ancient world, carried in the saddlebags of merchants, the memories of travelers, and the strategic minds of military advisors who recognized its value as a teaching tool. From India, Chaturanga traveled westward along the ancient trade routes, reaching Persia in the 7th century. The Persian court, with its love of poetry, art, and intellectual pursuits, embraced the game with enthusiasm. But as often happens when ideas cross cultural boundaries, they adapted it to their own sensibilities and language. The Persians called it chatrang, and under their influence, the game began to take on some of the characteristics we recognize today. The Persian word shah, meaning king, became the call when the royal peace was threatened. And when the king could not escape capture, the Persians would declare Shahmat, the king is helpless, the king is dead. In time, these words would transform into our familiar check and checkmate, but their Persian origins remind us that chess has always been a game about the rise and fall of kingdoms. Picture a Persian nobleman in his garden at twilight, the scent of jasmine heavy in the air, playing chaturang by lamplight with a visiting scholar. The pieces between them are more elaborate, now carved from ivory and ebony, inlaid with precious metals that catch and reflect the flickering light. They speak in low voices about strategy and tactics, but also about poetry and philosophy, for in Persian culture, chess was never just a game. It was a metaphor for life itself, for the eternal struggle between light and darkness, order and chaos. The game's journey didn't stop in Persia. As the Islamic Empire expanded in the 7th and 8th centuries, chess traveled with Muslim armies and merchants across North Africa and into Spain. But Islamic scholars brought something new to the game: systematic study. They began to analyze chess positions, to record notable games, and to develop what we might recognize as the first chess theory. In the courts of Baghdad and Cordoba, chess became a scholarly pursuit. Islamic mathematicians and philosophers wrote treatises on the game, exploring its strategic principles and developing standardized rules. They created the first chess problems, puzzles where a specific position had to be solved in a certain number of moves. These problems weren't just entertainment, they were training exercises that taught players to see patterns and calculate complex sequences of moves. The Islamic world also began to produce the first true chess professionals, players who traveled from court to court, earning their living through their skill at the game. These early chess masters were celebrities of a sort, welcomed by rulers who took pride in having the finest players in their service. They developed sophisticated opening principles and endgame techniques that wouldn't look out of place in a modern chess textbook. But perhaps the most significant change came as chess crossed from the Islamic world into medieval Europe in the 10th and 11th centuries. European culture, with its feudal system and Christian worldview, began to reshape the game once again. The Europeans kept the basic structure of the game, but transformed its symbolism. The Raja became a king, the Mantri counselor became a queen, though initially a much weaker piece than the queen we know today. The elephants, unfamiliar in European warfare, became bishops, representing the power of the church. The horses remained horses or became knights, embodying the ideals of chivalry. The chariots transformed into castles or rooks, representing the fortified strongholds that dominated medieval warfare. This wasn't just cosmetic change, it reflected a fundamental shift in how the game was understood. In medieval Europe, chess became explicitly connected to the social order. Chess manuals weren't just about strategy. They were about proper behavior, noble conduct, and the relationships between different classes of society. The most dramatic change came in the late 15th century, during the Renaissance, when European players revolutionized the game by dramatically increasing the power of the queen. Previously, the queen could only move one square diagonally, a piece of modest influence. But Renaissance Europeans, perhaps influenced by powerful female rulers like Isabella of Castile, transformed the queen into the most powerful piece on the board, able to move any number of squares in any direction. This change, along with the introduction of castling and the current rules for pawn promotion, created what we now call modern chess. The game became faster, more dynamic, more suited to the aggressive, humanistic spirit of the Renaissance. It was during this period that chess truly became the game we recognize today. The pieces come to life. Let us pause in our historical journey to examine more closely these carved ambassadors of strategy. These small sculptures that have captured human imagination for over a millennium. Each chess piece tells a story, not just of the game's evolution, but of the cultures and societies that shaped its development. The pawn, humble and numerous, represents perhaps the most profound democratic ideal in all of gaming. Here is a piece that begins the game as the weakest, most limited unit on the board, able to move only one square forward, unable to retreat, seemingly expendable in the grand scheme of battle. Yet hidden within each pawn lies unlimited potential. Reach the opposite end of the board, and this simple foot soldier can transform into any piece except the king, usually becoming a queen, the most powerful piece in the game. This transformation, this promotion, embodies something beautiful about human aspiration. It suggests that greatness can emerge from humble beginnings, that dedication and perseverance can overcome the circumstances of birth. In medieval times, when social mobility was rare and class distinctions seemed permanent, chess offered a different vision, a world where merit and strategic positioning could elevate anyone to the highest ranks. The rook or castle stands solid and dependable in the corners of the board. Its movement is straightforward, straight lines, no complications, no diagonal dancing. Yet this apparent simplicity conceals tremendous power. The rook can traverse the entire board in a single move, can control entire ranks and files, can deliver checkmate with minimal support. There's something deeply satisfying about the rook's honesty. It goes where it says it will go, does what it promises to do, without pretense or deception. The development of the rook's design tells its own fascinating story. In different cultures and periods, it has been represented as everything from a war elephant to a ship to the familiar castle tower we know today. The famous Lewis chessmen, discovered on a Scottish beach in 1831 and dating from the 12th century, show rooks as fierce warriors biting their shields in battle fury. A reminder that chess pieces were once imagined as living beings with their own personalities and motivations. The bishop moves only on diagonals, forever confined to squares of a single color. This limitation might seem like a weakness, but generations of chess players have discovered the subtle power of these diagonal rulers. Bishops work best in pairs, controlling complementary diagonal networks that can crisscross the entire board. They excel in open positions where their long-range capabilities can be fully utilized. The bishop's evolution from the Indian elephant to the Christian religious figure reflects the game's journey across cultures. In Islamic chess, the piece was often called ul-fil, derived from the Arabic word for elephant. European Christians, uncomfortable with pieces representing other religion symbols, transformed it into a bishop, a change that some chess historians argue influenced the piece's movement, as bishops were seen as moving through their dioceses in all directions, blessing and influencing from afar. The knight, the knight. Here is chess's most romantic piece, the only one that can leap over other pieces, the only one whose movement cannot be blocked. The knight's L-shaped move 2 squares in one direction, then 1 square perpendicular, seems almost whimsical compared to the straight lines and diagonals of other pieces. Yet this unique movement pattern makes the knight incredibly versatile, able to reach squares that other pieces cannot touch, able to fork multiple enemy pieces simultaneously. Medieval players saw in the knight the embodiment of chivalric ideals, the piece that could leap over obstacles, that fought with honor and skill rather than brute force. The knight's ability to move in ways no other piece could mirror represented the knight errant's ability to find solutions where others saw only dead ends. The queen's transformation from weak counselor to powerhouse reflects one of the most dramatic rule changes in chess history. In the original Indian game, and for centuries afterward, the piece we now call the queen was called the mantri, or furs, a counselor or advisor who could move only 1 square diagonally. This made for a much slower, more positional game, where advantages accumulated gradually over many moves. The Renaissance transformation of this piece into the modern queen changed chess fundamentally. Suddenly, the board crackled with tactical possibilities. Combinations that had been impossible became routine. The game became more dynamic, more explosive, more suited to an age that valued individual brilliance and dramatic achievement. Some chess historians argue that this change reflected the rise of powerful female rulers in late medieval Europe. Queens like Isabella of Castile and later Elizabeth I of England demonstrated that female leadership could be every bit as effective as male rule. The chess queen's dominance on the board may have been both cause and effect of changing attitudes toward feminine power. The king, paradoxically, is both the most important and the weakest piece on the board. The entire game revolves around the king's safety, yet the king himself can move only one square at a time, can capture only adjacent pieces, spends much of the game hidden away for protection. This paradox reflects deep truths about leadership and power. That true authority often requires careful protection, that the most important people in any organization may not be its most active or visible members. But the king's apparent weakness conceals hidden strengths that emerge in the endgame. When most pieces have been traded off and checkmate threats diminish, the king transforms from a liability into an active piece. Kings in the endgame can control key squares, support their pawns' advance, and even deliver checkmate. This transformation mirrors the way that leaders often become more hands-on as organizations face their greatest challenges. In coffee houses and royal courts. As chess evolved from ancient war game to Renaissance obsession, it found homes in the most unlikely places, not just in royal palaces and noble estates, but in the bustling coffee houses and public squares where ordinary people gathered to discuss the affairs of the day. The coffee house chess culture began in the Islamic world and spread throughout Europe as coffee itself became a popular drink. Picture a typical cafe in 17th century London or Vienna, the air thick with tobacco smoke and the aroma of roasted beans, the chatter of merchants and intellectuals debating politics and philosophy. And in the corner, always in the corner, the quiet intensity of chess players bent over their boards. These public chess venues democratized the game in ways that palace playing never could. Here, a struggling artist could challenge a wealthy merchant, a university student could test his skills against a grizzled veteran, a working man could spend his evening pursuing the same intellectual pleasures that had once been reserved for the nobility. The cafe players developed their own culture and customs. Games were often played for small stakes, the price of a cup of coffee, perhaps, or a slice of bread. Spectators gathered around interesting games, offering commentary and analysis that sometimes proved more valuable than the players' own calculations. Regular players developed reputations based on their style, the aggressive tactician who sacrificed pieces for attacking chances, the solid positional player who slowly ground down opponents through superior endgame technique, the time-pressure artist who played brilliantly only when the clock was running down. Coffee house chess also produced some of the game's first true professionals, players who earned their living through chess rather than pursuing it as a noble pastime. These masters often survived by giving lessons to wealthy amateurs, playing simultaneous exhibitions against multiple opponents, or accepting challenges from local players who wanted to test their skills against the experts. But chess's cultural influence extended far beyond the game itself. Writers and poets began using chess as a metaphor for life's complexities. The great Persian poet Omar Khayyam wrote of humans as pieces on a cosmic chessboard, moved by forces beyond their understanding. Medieval romance literature featured chess games between knights and ladies, where the outcome of the game determined the fate of kingdoms or the hearts of lovers. The symbolism was irresistible. Chess offered a perfect metaphor for any situation involving strategy, planning, and the struggle between opposing forces. Politicians spoke of geopolitical situations in chess terms. Military theorists used chess principles to explain battlefield tactics. Philosophers found in chess a mirror for the human condition itself. Perhaps the most famous literary chess game appears in Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, where Alice moves across a chessboard landscape, transforming from pawn to queen over the course of her adventure. Carroll, himself a mathematician and chess player, embedded real chess principles into his fantasy, creating a story that works both as children's literature and as an extended chess metaphor. The visual arts embraced chess as well. Medieval illuminated manuscripts often featured chess scenes as symbols of noble leisure and intellectual pursuit. Renaissance painters included chess sets in their portraits to suggest their subjects' sophistication and strategic thinking. Later artists found in the geometric patterns of the chessboard and the sculptural qualities of the pieces rich material for artistic exploration. Chess also influenced music, particularly during the Baroque period when composers like Philidor, himself a strong chess player, created musical works based on chess themes. The idea of musical composition as a form of strategic thinking, with themes developing and interacting like pieces on a board, became a common metaphor among composers and music theorists. But perhaps most significantly, chess became a social equalizer in ways that few other activities could match. On the chessboard, titles and wealth meant nothing, only understanding, calculation, and strategic vision mattered. Stories abound of humble players defeating nobles, of servants besting their masters, of children outwitting their elders through superior chess understanding. This egalitarian aspect of chess reflected and perhaps influenced broader social changes. In an age when class distinctions were beginning to blur and merit was starting to matter more than birth, chess offered a model for how society might work if talent and effort were the only measures of worth. The emergence of chess journalism in the 18th and 19th centuries further democratized chess knowledge. Chess magazines and newspaper columns made master-level analysis available to anyone who could read. Famous games were published and annotated, opening secrets once known only to the elite. Chess problems appeared in publications alongside news and literature, making chess puzzles a form of popular entertainment. The Age of Champions. As we move deeper into chess's modern era, we encounter a parade of extraordinary individuals whose genius transformed chess from a pleasant pastime into an art form, a science, and sometimes a battleground where nations fought proxy wars through the movement of wooden pieces. Let us begin with a figure so romantic, so tragic, that his story reads like a novel, Paul Morphy, the pride of New Orleans, whose meteoric rise and mysterious withdrawal from chess has fascinated generations of players and historians. Picture New Orleans in the 1850s, a cosmopolitan city where French, Spanish, and American cultures blended in the sultry air, where coffee houses buzzed with international commerce and intellectual exchange. Into this world was born Paul Charles Morphy in 1837, a child prodigy who learned chess at age 10, and within 2 years was defeating the strongest players in the city. Morphy's style was revolutionary for its time. While his contemporaries played slowly and methodically, building small advantages through careful positional maneuvering, Morphy attacked with the fury of a natural force. His games sparkled with brilliant sacrifices, unexpected tactics, and combinations that seemed to materialize from thin air. He possessed what chess players call intuition, the ability to find the right move not through lengthy calculation, but through some mysterious understanding of the position's hidden harmonies. In 1857, Morphy traveled to New York for the first American Chess Congress, where he defeated the nation's strongest players with such ease that spectators began to question whether anyone could challenge him. His victory established him as America's first chess champion, but Morphy had greater ambitions. He wanted to prove himself against the strongest European masters. Morphy's European tour of 1858–1859 became the stuff of legend. In London and Paris, he defeated master after master, often while giving them significant advantages, playing without his queen, or playing multiple opponents simultaneously while blindfolded. His most famous match was against Adolf Anderssen, the unofficial world champion, whom Morphy defeated decisively in a match that established him as the strongest player in the world. But then, at the height of his powers, Morphy did something unprecedented. He retired from serious chess, returning to New Orleans to practice law and live as a private gentleman. He was barely 22 years old, at an age when most chess masters are just beginning to reach their peak. His retirement puzzled the chess world then and continues to mystify historians today. Morphy's brief career established principles that still guide chess play today. He demonstrated the importance of rapid development, the value of controlling the center, and the power of coordinated piece activity. His games became textbook examples of how to conduct an attack, how to sacrifice material for positional advantage, and how to convert small tactical gains into decisive victories. After Morphy's retirement, the chess world sought new champions to fill the void he left. The title of world champion became formalized in the 1880s when Wilhelm Steinitz, an Austrian master, claimed the title by defeating Adolf Anderssen. Steinitz brought scientific rigor to chess, developing theoretical principles that explained why certain moves and strategies succeeded while others failed. Steinitz was followed by Emanuel Lasker, a German mathematician who held the world championship for an unprecedented 27 years. Lasker's greatness lay not just in his technical skill, but in his psychological understanding of his opponents. He played the man as much as the position, adapting his style to exploit his opponent's weaknesses and preferences. The early 20th century saw the rise of José Raúl Capablanca, the Cuban master whose seemingly effortless play earned him the nickname the chess machine. Capablanca made chess look easy. His moves appeared so natural, so obviously correct, that spectators often failed to appreciate their depth and precision. He lost only one serious game in his entire adult career before becoming world champion, a record that remains unmatched. Capablanca was succeeded by Alexander Alekhine, a Russian émigré whose aggressive, tactical style provided a stark contrast to his predecessor's smooth positional play. Alekhine prepared for games with unprecedented thoroughness, studying his opponent's previous games and developing specific strategies to exploit their weaknesses. But it was the period after World War II that produced chess's most dramatic and politically charged championship matches. The Soviet Union, recognizing chess's propaganda value, invested heavily in developing chess talent. They established chess schools, provided state support for promising players, and turned chess achievement into a matter of national pride. This system produced a generation of extraordinarily strong players, beginning with Mikhail Botvinnik, who won the World Championship in 1948 and established Soviet dominance that would last for decades. Botvinnik approached chess like an engineer. He studied positions systematically, developed training methods based on scientific principles, and treated chess preparation as seriously as any academic discipline. The Soviet chess machine seemed unstoppable. Botvinnik was followed by Vasily Smyslov, Mikhail Tal, Tigran Petrosian, and Boris Spassky, each a world champion, each representing different aspects of chess excellence. They dominated international tournaments, won Olympic team competitions, and made chess a source of national pride in a way that no other country had ever achieved. And then came Bobby Fischer. Robert James Fischer was born in Chicago in 1943 and learned chess at age 6. By age 13, he was winning brilliancy prizes in strong tournaments. By 16, he had become the youngest player ever to qualify for the World Championship cycle. Fischer's rise coincided with the height of the Cold War, and his challenge to Soviet chess dominance took on symbolic importance far beyond the game itself. Fischer's preparation was legendary. He studied chess with an intensity that bordered on obsession, memorizing thousands of games and analyzing positions with computer-like precision. But his greatest asset was his fighting spirit, his refusal to accept draws in equal positions, his determination to play every game for a win. The 1972 World Championship match between Fischer and Boris Spassky in Reykjavik, Iceland, became one of the most watched chess events in history. It was chess as Cold War drama, with each game analyzed not just for its chess content, but for its political implications. Fischer's victory made him an international celebrity, and briefly made chess front-page news around the world. But Fischer, like Morphy before him, withdrew from chess at the height of his powers. He forfeited his title in 1975 rather than defend it under conditions he found unacceptable, and never played another serious game until a controversial match in 1992. The post-Fischer era saw the rise of Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov, whose rivalry dominated chess in the 1980s and 1990s. Their matches were studies in contrasting styles, Karpov's subtle positional squeeze against Kasparov's dynamic tactical brilliance, and their marathon encounters pushed the boundaries of human chess understanding. Inside the chess mind. Now let us turn from the external drama of championship matches to explore the internal landscape of chess thinking. That mysterious mental process that allows human minds to navigate the infinite complexity of 64 squares and 32 pieces. What happens in the mind of a chess player during a game? Modern neuroscience has begun to provide some answers, but the subjective experience remains wonderfully mysterious. Strong players describe entering a state of focused concentration where the outside world fades away, where time seems to slow down, where patterns and possibilities emerge from the position with crystalline clarity. This state bears remarkable similarities to what psychologists call flow, the mental state of complete immersion in an activity where self-consciousness disappears and performance reaches its peak. Chess players in this state report that moves seem to suggest themselves, that the right choice becomes obvious without lengthy calculation, that they feel connected to the game in ways that transcend mere analysis. But how does the chess mind actually work? The process begins with pattern recognition. Expert chess players have spent years studying games, solving problems, and playing through positions until certain patterns become as familiar as faces in a crowd. They recognize tactical motifs, positional themes, and strategic ideas, the way we recognize words in our native language instantly, and without conscious effort. This pattern recognition allows strong players to eliminate most possible moves from consideration without detailed analysis. In any chess position, there might be 30 or 40 legal moves, but an expert's intuition immediately narrows the field to 3 or 4 serious candidates. This dramatically reduces the computational burden and allows deeper analysis of the most promising continuations. The calculation process itself resembles a tree of possibilities branching into the future. The player considers a move, then visualizes the opponent's likely responses, then considers their own replies to those responses, creating chains of analysis that can extend many moves into the future. Strong players can hold these complex variations in their mind simultaneously, comparing different branches and evaluating their final positions. But calculation alone isn't enough. Chess positions must be evaluated. Someone must decide whether a particular arrangement of pieces favors white or black, and by how much. This evaluation combines objective factors like material count and pawn structure, with more subtle considerations like piece activity, king safety, and dynamic possibilities. Expert players develop what might be called a chess sense, an intuitive understanding of position evaluation that guides their calculations. They can glance at a position and immediately sense whether it's sharp or quiet, whether it favors tactical or positional play, whether it requires immediate action or patient maneuvering. Memory plays a crucial role in chess expertise, but not in the way most people imagine. Chess masters don't simply memorize vast numbers of positions. Instead, they build a library of patterns and principles that help them understand new positions by analogy to familiar ones. When faced with an unfamiliar position, they find similar structures in their memory and apply the lessons learned from those analogous situations. This is why chess masters can play rapid games or even blindfolded chess with remarkable strength. They're not calculating every variation from scratch. They're recognizing patterns and applying principles developed through years of study and practice. Their minds have become databases of chess wisdom that can be accessed almost instantaneously. The psychological aspects of chess thinking are equally fascinating. Players must manage not just the objective complexities of the position, but their own emotions, time pressure, and psychological responses to their opponent's moves. A surprising move by the opponent can trigger doubt, causing a player to question their previous analysis. Time pressure can force quick decisions that bypass careful calculation. The psychological momentum of the game, who seems to be dictating play, who appears more confident, can influence decision-making in subtle but important ways. Chess also requires a peculiar form of empathy, the ability to think from your opponent's perspective, to understand their plans and intentions, to predict their likely responses to your moves. The best players excel at this mental role-playing, imagining themselves in their opponent's position and asking what they would do in similar circumstances. The development of chess intuition is one of the most mysterious aspects of chess improvement. Beginning players must calculate everything explicitly, considering each possibility through painstaking analysis. But as players gain experience, they develop an almost mystical ability to sense the right move without understanding exactly why it's correct. This intuition isn't magic. It's the result of pattern recognition operating below the level of conscious awareness. The mind recognizes similarities to previously studied positions and suggests moves that worked in analogous situations. With enough experience, this pattern matching becomes so rapid and reliable that it feels like inspiration. The emotional experience of chess thinking varies dramatically depending on the position and the player's temperament. Some positions call for cold, calculating analysis where emotion would be a distraction. Others require bold imagination and willingness to take risks despite uncertain consequences. The best players learn to adapt their thinking style to match the demands of each position. Many chess players report that their finest games feel almost like they're playing themselves, that the moves emerge from some deeper level of understanding without conscious effort. These peak experiences suggest that chess mastery involves not just learning techniques and accumulating knowledge, but developing a form of chess consciousness that operates according to its own mysterious logic. When machines learned to think. In the autumn of 1996, something unprecedented happened in the world of chess, and indeed, in the history of human intellectual achievement. In a conference room in Philadelphia, Garry Kasparov, widely regarded as the strongest chess player who had ever lived, sat down across from a machine called Deep Blue for a match that would redraw the boundaries between human and artificial intelligence. This wasn't the first time a computer had challenged a world champion. Chess programmers had been pursuing this goal for decades, driven by the tantalizing possibility that a game which seemed to require pure thought might be mastered by pure calculation. But this was different. Deep Blue wasn't just another chess program running on a personal computer. It was a specialized supercomputer designed for one purpose: to play chess better than any human being. The story of computer chess begins much earlier, in the theoretical work of mathematicians like Claude Shannon and Alan Turing, who recognized that chess's rule-based structure made it an ideal testing ground for artificial intelligence. If machines could learn to play chess well, the reasoning went, they might eventually master other forms of human reasoning. The early chess programs of the 1960s and 1970s were primitive by today's standards, capable of beating only novice players. But they established the basic approach that would eventually prove successful: brute force calculation. While humans relied on pattern recognition and intuition to guide their analysis, computers would simply calculate deeper, examining millions of possible move sequences to find the objectively best continuation. This approach had obvious limitations. Chess positions can branch into astronomical numbers of possible continuations. More possible games exist than there are atoms in the observable universe. No computer, no matter how powerful, could calculate every possibility. So programmers developed techniques for pruning the search tree, eliminating obviously inferior moves to focus computational power on the most promising variations. They also had to solve the evaluation problem, teaching computers to assess chess positions that couldn't be calculated to a definitive conclusion. This required translating human chess knowledge into mathematical formulas that captured concepts like piece mobility, pawn structure, and king safety in numerical terms. Progress was steady but slow. In the 1980s, chess computers began defeating club-level players. By the early 1990s, they were challenging masters. But the gap between the best computers and the best humans seemed unbridgeable. Computers could calculate deeper than humans, but humans understood chess in ways that seemed impossible to program. Then IBM entered the picture. Their researchers, led by a team including Feng Hsiung HSU and Murray Campbell, set out to build a computer specifically designed to defeat the world chess champion. Deep Blue represented a massive engineering effort: custom chips designed to evaluate chess positions, parallel processing that could examine hundreds of millions of positions per second, and opening databases containing virtually every master game ever played. The first match between Kasparov and Deep Blue in 1996 ended with a victory for the human champion, but it was closer than many expected. Kasparov won 3 games, Deep Blue won 1, and 2 were drawn. More importantly, the quality of Deep Blue's play convinced observers that the gap was closing rapidly. The rematch in 1997 would prove to be a watershed moment. Over 6 games played in New York under intense media scrutiny, Deep Blue defeated Kasparov by the narrow margin of 3.5 to 2.5. For the first time in history, a computer had defeated a reigning world champion in a match under tournament conditions. The impact extended far beyond chess. Here was proof that machines could master activities that had previously seemed to require uniquely human forms of intelligence. The match demonstrated that raw computational power, properly directed, could overcome even the most sophisticated human intuition and pattern recognition. But the victory also revealed the limitations of the brute force approach. Deep Blue played chess well, but it didn't understand chess in any meaningful sense. It had no conception of beauty, elegance, or style. It couldn't appreciate the aesthetic qualities that humans found so compelling in chess. It was, in essence, a very sophisticated calculator that happened to be excellent at calculating chess positions. The post-Deep Blue era saw rapid improvements in computer chess. Programs running on ordinary personal computers soon reached and exceeded Deep Blue's strength. Chess engines became essential tools for professional players, who used them to analyze their games, prepare opening variations, and test strategic ideas. This revolution changed chess in fundamental ways. Opening theory advanced rapidly as computers discovered new possibilities in previously unexplored lines. Players began to rely on computer analysis for preparation, leading to games with unprecedented theoretical depth. The style of play began to change as well. with players adopting computer-inspired moves that might have seemed unnatural to previous generations. But computers also revealed new truths about chess itself. They demonstrated that many positions previously thought to be equal actually favored one side or the other by tiny margins. They found tactical resources in positions that human masters had dismissed as quiet. They showed that chess was even richer and more complex than humans had realized. The democratizing effect of strong chess computers cannot be overstated. Suddenly, anyone with a computer could access analysis that surpassed the understanding of past world champions. Chess engines became tireless training partners, available 24 hours a day to play games, analyze positions, and suggest improvements. This led to a phenomenon known as computer-aided analysis, where human understanding combined with computer calculation to achieve insights that neither could reach alone. The best analysis now comes from human-computer teams, where human intuition guides computer calculation toward the most promising variations. The rise of computer chess also sparked philosophical debates about the nature of intelligence and understanding. Did Deep Blue's victory prove that consciousness wasn't necessary for intellectual achievement? Or did it simply demonstrate that chess, despite its complexity, was fundamentally a computational problem that could be solved through sufficient processing power? Today's chess engines are far stronger than Deep Blue, running on smartphones and tablets with computational power that would have been unimaginable in 1997. They've reached a level where the gap between computer and human play has become essentially unbridgeable. The strongest human players now treat chess engines not as opponents to be defeated, but as oracles to be consulted for deeper understanding of the game they love. The modern kingdom. As we approach the present day in our gentle journey through chess history, we find a game transformed by technology, globalized by the internet, and made more accessible than ever before through digital platforms that bring players together across continents and time zones. The internet revolution of the late 20th and early 21st centuries had perhaps no greater impact on any traditional game than it did on chess. Suddenly, a player in rural Montana could face an opponent in urban India. A grandmaster in Moscow could simultaneously teach students in Sao Paulo and Stockholm, and chess games could be broadcast live to audiences of hundreds of thousands around the world. Online chess platforms like chess.com and Lichess have created virtual chess communities that dwarf any physical chess club. These platforms host millions of games daily, offer lessons from world-class players, and provide analysis tools that were once available only to chess professionals. They've made chess more democratic, more accessible, and more immediate than ever before in the game's long history. The rise of online chess has also transformed the way we think about time in chess. Traditional tournament games might last 4 or 5 hours, with players taking 30 minutes or more to consider a single move. But online platforms popularized blitz chess games lasting just 3 to 5 minutes total, and even bullet chess, where each player has only 1 minute for the entire game. These rapid time controls created a different kind of chess, one that prioritized intuition over calculation, pattern recognition over deep analysis. Players developed new skills, the ability to play good moves quickly, to manage time pressure effectively, to maintain tactical alertness when there's no time for careful thought. Some purists argued that speed chess wasn't real chess, but millions of players embraced it as a thrilling, accessible form of the ancient game. The streaming revolution brought yet another dimension to modern chess. Platforms like Twitch, originally designed for video game streaming, became home to chess personalities who broadcast their games live while providing commentary and interacting with viewers. These streamers made chess entertaining in new ways, adding humor, personality, and educational content to what had traditionally been a silent, contemplative activity. The most successful chess streamers became celebrities in their own right, with followings that rivaled traditional sports stars. They demonstrated that chess could be both intellectually serious and genuinely entertaining, that the ancient game could adapt to modern media consumption habits without losing its essential character. This transformation reached its peak during the COVID-19 pandemic, when physical chess tournaments were canceled and millions of people, stuck at home, discovered online chess. The period saw unprecedented growth in chess participation, with online platforms reporting user increases of 300% or more. Chess experienced a renaissance that surprised even longtime enthusiasts. The growth was amplified by popular culture's embrace of chess, particularly through the Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit, which introduced the game to audiences who might never have considered learning it. The show's portrayal of chess as glamorous, intellectually challenging, and emotionally compelling sparked a global surge of interest in the game. But perhaps the most significant development in modern chess has been the rise of artificial intelligence beyond simple chess engines. AlphaZero, developed by DeepMind, represented a revolutionary approach to chess AI. Instead of relying on human knowledge and brute force calculation like traditional engines, AlphaZero learned chess entirely through self-play, starting from knowing only the rules and gradually developing its own understanding through millions of games against itself. AlphaZero's play style was revelatory. It demonstrated strategic concepts that human masters had never considered, found new ways to evaluate positions, and played with a creativity that seemed almost human. Its games were published and studied like the masterpieces of great human champions, offering insights into chess, understanding that purely computational engines had never provided. This new generation of AI has pushed chess analysis to unprecedented heights. Modern engines don't just find the best moves, they can explain their reasoning, suggest alternative approaches, and even adapt their playing style to match human preferences. They've become teaching tools as much as analysis tools, helping players understand not just what to play, but why certain moves work and others don't. The educational applications of modern technology have transformed chess instruction. Online courses offer structured learning paths from beginner to expert. Tactical training programs provide unlimited puzzles tailored to each player's skill level. Database programs allow players to study master games by opening, theme, or player style. Video lessons from grandmasters make world-class instruction available to anyone with an internet connection. Chess has also embraced new formats and variants that would have been impossible without digital platforms. King of the Hill chess, where winning requires getting your king to the center. Crazy House, where captured pieces can be dropped back onto the board. Fischer Random, where the starting position is randomized to eliminate opening preparation. These variants demonstrate chess's fundamental flexibility, its ability to remain engaging even when its ancient rules are modified. The global nature of modern chess has created a truly international community. Players routinely compete against opponents from different continents, learn from masters who speak different languages, and participate in online tournaments that span multiple time zones. Chess has become one of the most successful examples of digital globalization, creating connections and friendships that transcend national and cultural boundaries. Professional chess has adapted to these changes while maintaining its traditional character. Major tournaments now feature live streaming with expert commentary, interactive analysis, and real-time audience participation. Players have embraced social media, sharing their preparation insights and tournament experiences with fans around the world. The emergence of chess content creators, YouTubers, streamers, and educational website developers has created new career paths within the chess world. These creators combine chess expertise with media skills, making the game accessible to new audiences while building sustainable businesses around chess content. Youth chess has particularly benefited from technological advances. Children now learn chess through apps and games that make instruction fun and engaging. Online scholastic tournaments allow young players to compete regardless of their geographic location. Chess puzzles and lessons can be accessed anytime, anywhere, making it easier than ever for young minds to develop chess skills. The rating systems used to measure chess strength have become more sophisticated and accurate, with separate ratings for different time controls and formats. Players can track their improvement in real time, identify weaknesses in their play, and set specific goals for advancement. This quantification of chess skill has made improvement more systematic and motivating. The mathematics of infinity. As we approach the conclusion of our gentle journey through the kingdom of chess, let us explore one of its most mind-bending aspects, the sheer mathematical vastness that lies hidden within those 64 squares. A complexity so profound that it makes chess simultaneously finite and infinite, bounded yet boundless. Consider this remarkable fact. After just the first 2 moves by each player in a chess game, what chess players call 2 moves deep, there are already 197,742 possible positions. After 3 moves each, this number explodes to over 9 million possibilities. By the time we reach a typical middle game position, the number of possible continuations becomes larger than the number of atoms in the observable universe. This mathematical explosion is what mathematicians call the combinatorial explosion, and it makes chess unique among games. Unlike checkers, which has been solved by computers, meaning the outcome of perfect play is known, chess's complexity appears to place it forever beyond complete solution. Even with all the computational power humanity is likely to develop, we will never exhaustively analyze every possible chess position. The most frequently cited estimate suggests that there are approximately 10 to the power of 120 possible chess games, a number so large it defies meaningful comparison. To put this in perspective, scientists estimate there are about 10 to the power of 80 atoms in the observable universe. The number of possible chess games is larger than the number of atoms in a trillion universes identical to our own. This vastness emerges from the game's elegant simplicity. Chess has only 6 types of pieces, each with straightforward movement rules, yet these simple elements combine to create infinite complexity. It's a perfect example of emergence, the phenomenon where simple rules give rise to complex behaviors that couldn't be predicted from studying the rules alone. But chess's mathematical beauty extends beyond mere complexity. The game exhibits what mathematicians call fractal properties, patterns that repeat at different scales. Opening principles that apply to the first few moves remain relevant in the middle game and endgame. Tactical motifs like pins, forks, and skewers appear in positions ranging from simple puzzles to world championship games. The longest possible chess game, according to the rules, could theoretically last up to 5949 moves. This would occur if players repeatedly moved pieces without capturing anything or moving pawns, which would reset the move counter under the 50-move rule, and carefully avoided threefold repetition. Of course, no practical game would ever approach this length, but the theoretical possibility demonstrates chess's mathematical extremes. At the other end of the spectrum, the shortest possible checkmate, known as fool's mate, can occur in just 2 moves. This checkmate requires incredibly poor play by white, but it illustrates how quickly chess's tactical possibilities can crystallize into decisive outcomes. Chess problems and compositions represent the game's mathematical artistry in its purest form. These constructed positions, created by composers rather than arising from actual games, often demonstrate specific themes or showcase particular pieces' capabilities. Some chess problems require finding the only move that achieves checkmate in a specified number of moves. Others ask solvers to find the longest possible sequence of moves that maintains a winning advantage. The most famous chess problem categories include mate in 2 puzzles, where white must checkmate black in exactly 2 moves regardless of black's defense. These problems often feature surprising first moves that seem to weaken white's position, but actually set up unstoppable mating attacks. The beauty lies in the economy of means, achieving maximum effect with minimum material. Endgame studies represent another mathematical extreme of chess. These positions, usually featuring just a few pieces, can demonstrate principles that apply across chess's entire spectrum. The famous Rady endgame study of 1921 shows how a king can simultaneously chase an enemy pawn and support its own pawn's advance through precise geometric calculations that seem to defy intuition. Computer analysis has revealed new mathematical truths about chess that human players never suspected. For instance, many positions that masters evaluated as equal actually favor one side by tiny margins that become significant only in perfect play. Computers have discovered that chess is more forcing, more precise, than humans had realized. The development of chess databases containing millions of master games has enabled statistical analysis of chess that reveals hidden patterns. We now know, for instance, that one effort moving the king's pawn 2 squares wins approximately 52% of games, while one d4 moving the queen's pawn 2 squares wins about 55%. These small differences, invisible in individual games, become statistically significant across large samples. Chess variants demonstrate how small rule changes can create entirely different mathematical landscapes. In King of the Hill chess, where the goal is to move your king to the center, the value of pieces changes dramatically. Knights become more valuable for their ability to reach central squares quickly, while bishops lose value because long-range pieces are less effective in this format. Three-dimensional chess, popularized by science fiction, multiplies chess's complexity exponentially by adding vertical movement. The resulting game becomes so complex that even strong two-dimensional chess players struggle to calculate accurately in 3 dimensions. This demonstrates how chess's mathematical complexity derives not just from the number of pieces, but from the geometric relationships between squares. Chess has also inspired mathematical research in areas seemingly unrelated to games. Graph theory studies chess-related problems like the knight's tour, finding a sequence of knight moves that visits every square exactly once. Probability theory analyzes questions like the likelihood of specific piece configurations arising by chance. The rating systems used to measure chess strength employ sophisticated mathematical models based on statistical analysis of game results. The ELO rating system, developed by physicist Arpad Elo, treats chess performance as a statistical phenomenon and predicts game outcomes based on rating differences. Modern rating systems use even more complex algorithms that account for factors like the time control, the player's recent performance, and the specific opposition faced. Perhaps most remarkably, chess has proven useful for studying artificial intelligence and cognitive science. The game provides a controlled environment for testing theories about problem-solving, pattern recognition, and decision-making under uncertainty. Research into chess-playing programs has contributed to advances in fields ranging from computer science to neuroscience. As our gentle journey through chess's timeless world comes to an end, we've traveled from ancient Indian courts to modern digital kingdoms, discovering how 32 simple pieces became humanity's greatest strategy game. We've met brilliant minds, witnessed epic battles, and explored the infinite mathematical beauty hidden within 64 squares. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, perhaps you'll dream of chess positions unfolding like stories, of pieces dancing across boards in perfect harmony. Thank you for joining me on this peaceful exploration. Sweet dreams, and may your mind rest easy knowing you've learned something wonderful about the world's most beautiful game.